Hello guys, hope you're all doing well. We're starting the month of March, hopefully with a bullish sentiment, but let's wait and see because obviously there's a lot going on in the world. Hope everyone's well. Hope you guys are enjoying your trading journey. I don't know where you guys are all at, but welcome to my channel. It's buy, hold or sell. I guess those are the only three questions you can ask every time you look at a chart. It's like, well, is it time to buy? Is it time to hold? Is it time to sell? So they're very, very good questions. But however, depending what the answer is, kind of leaves you in limbo as to did you make the right decision and how come you're always losing on your trade. So let's break it down. Today I'm going to look at a few common popular charts that everybody would like to know the answer to as to do we buy, hold and sell. In terms of the chart that I'll be using, in terms of the platform that I'll be using, it's TradingView. You can obviously use my link in the description below to access this free platform. With the basics, you get everything you need to learn how to chart with me and to follow along with your favorite stocks. So let's make a start. So as I say, we're in the beginning of the month of March. Hopefully we have bullish sentiment. And the first one I have is obviously Bitcoin, because we've had like major dumps of it since the beginning of, since last year really, in October 2025. And since October, it's just been dumping. People have really been trying to get rid of this this commodity. Digital gold asset, I suppose that is another term people like to refer Bitcoin to. Anyways, so if I just start with the daily chart, by the way, all the experience and knowledge that I'm coming to you with today has been an amalgamation of over a few years kind of understanding and learning from other people. One of the major two that I recommend in terms of the YouTubers that I love to follow and have learned a lot from is first a tribute is to Oliver Velez. His channel is just amazing. I think he's been in the game for almost 30 years now, and he basically gives you a very, very, very simple but clear understanding of how the players in this market kind of, through the way that they project what they think and how their feelings are, that kind of develops into the chart that you see before you. It's all psychological. Everybody will tell you trading is very, very psychological, because it's based on humans' fears and emotions. Your fear and your greed just goes through the roof every time that you put money on the line. So anybody who's approaching trading, you have to be aware of this, and if you aren't, you will soon quickly realize that it plays a major part in the way that you trade. The only person that it really doesn't affect are children. If there are any young adults that are like been taught how to trade, they can obviously just view it as a game, like when they're playing a game, and they're the only ones that will kind of like have this veil of no emotions involved because they're just playing a game. I suppose the only heightened thing they get is if they win, then they'll have like heightened emotions towards it, but that's just sidetracking. I'm just saying for normal adults, when they put money on the line, there's a lot of fear and greed that comes into it, and it affects everybody differently. So it's one way kind of like you think you're trading, but really you're learning about yourself like a lot. So you've been prepared and warned. That's kind of like the journey you're on. So the other YouTuber that I love to watch also is Urban Forex. Although I don't trade Forex, it's another thing that you can trade, but I haven't really touched. But I love following this YouTuber because the way that they teach how the chart moves is also with the same mindset, because there are people behind these trades, and human beings have a way of behaving, and depending on that behavior will give you the sentiment as to, the chart's pulling up or pulling down or just holding. So it all comes down to fear and greed. But the other YouTuber, like I said, is Urban Forex and Oliver Velez. These are the two that I follow. More recently, I follow Tory Trades, because I find that she's a female in this space that has, in her own way established quite a good kind of like following for herself, and she's kind of one of the new younger traders, whereas the other two have been in the business, like I said, for over 20 to 30 years, whereas she's a new trader who's been in this game for over 10 years. So I like to watch and see how the new people are kind of trading compared to the older ones. And as in everything in life, the more you do something, the more you see how simplistic it is at the end of the day. So the more simpler somebody makes something, that shows you kind of their competency in terms of like how good they are. But like I said, it's always good to have a different angle on things and a different take, because when you combine it all, that becomes your own strategy. And like I said, because trading is more of like learning about your own way of how you think and how your emotions behave. Not every strategy will be suited to each person, because some people may be jumpy, some people may be more inclined to take their time, have a pace about things. So it all really depends on how you read yourself as to how you can best trade and make the most gains from each of your trades that you place. But anyways, that's just a brief introduction into trading if you're not familiar with it. But today I'm going to be doing a few assessments on where I think certain stocks, commodities and cryptos are at. So we'll start off with Bitcoin. Like I said, it's been bleeding since October. And I think we're nearing towards the end now. I think we're nearing towards the point where it's starting to making its bottom. The bottom seems to be coming in and it seems to be reversing. However, there will be a checkpoint Charlie at some point. So that's why I've started on the daily chart to show you. So on the daily here, I've got 3 moving averages. I always like to use these 3 because there is some sense to them. So the 3 that I tend to use, and most people do use them to give you, I suppose, the lay of the land. So before you look at anything, it's good to know what the lay of the land is, because before you kind of like venture into a certain, location, you need to know kind of where you're at and what's surrounding you. So the lay of the land for the picture of Bitcoin on the daily chart is that you can see the yellow line is my 200-day moving average, which is an average of 200 candles over that period of time, and then it averages it out. So if it's below it, then you can tell that there is a downward trend. So the 200 moving average gives you kind of like the bigger picture. So like I said, Bitcoin has been bleeding since October, and it's still kind of it's kind of halting at the moment, and it's going sideways because there is, I think the bottom could be in and we're starting to move up. The next line that I have is this red line, which is your 50 moving average, which averages 50 candles. And then the blue line is your 20 moving average. And that averages 20 candles. So on the daily chart, you can see, and how I tend to use these moving averages is just an indication, like I said, if the blue, the 20, which is the faster moving average line, if that is below the 50, we're still in a downtrend. And if both of those are below the 200, we're definitely in a downtrend. However, you can see the 20 moving average is starting to curl up today, and it has been for the last 3 days. Like I said, I'm on the daily chart, so each of these candles represent a day of trading. So for this past week, Bitcoin is starting to move upwards, and as you can see, the moving averages is basically, it's not, real-time movement. It's a delay because it's averaging things out. But there is a turning. There's, a slight curving up of the 20. So it looks as though the 20 has stopped, declining, and it's starting to turn around. And as it's turning around, obviously that 20 moving average is starting to collide and hit towards that 50 moving average. And then hopefully as they both move up, they'll hit the 200. And as you can see, the 200 basically sits near 96,000 to 100 as we get closer to the time. So it looks as though there could be a turning point where we could see that before there's any other moves. But currently at the moment, I think if you were to load up, there's this thing where people say, DCA into things. So buy things as it's, falling down in price, but then you're picking up lower prices and then you're averaging out, how much of that particular item you have, and you're averaging down your cost. So at the moment, if I was to buy into BTC, I would say it's a buy today for the near future, because obviously you're getting really good prices already at around about 60 to 70 grand. So that's quite a good kind of, this is quite a good level to pick up some BTC. So I would say Bitcoin today is a hold for the foreseeable time that we're entering, into this month of March. So I tend to like to use the 20 and the 50 moving average as a way to gauge whether the stock could, fall. I mean, as it hits the 50, it could fall again. But then if it's trapped between the 50 and the 20, there could be a holding period. And this is where, if you were to hold it, you would just hang on until it decides to break out up or down. But it looks as though we are hitting the bottom. However, you can never be sure. There could be some unforeseen black swan event whereby, as in last time, I think somebody was liquidated quite severely, that we had this bleeding since October. I think October the 13th was the crash date. So there could be, some kind of black swan event which then could cause another catastrophic, downfall. But if there's nothing on the horizon that, kind of can, that kind of like is in the future of Bitcoin, then I believe that this could be the bottom, and we could be starting to make our move back up, and, starting the uptrend and the climb, and hopefully into the bullish year of 2026 going forward. There's lots of hopes for this to, regain its original all-time high at around about 120. And then from there, it could keep blasting to the moon. I think targets people are saying are around about 200 to 250 to 300. Who knows? But those are the targets that are in place. But like I said, today, I would say it's a buy, It's a buy until we kind of see what happens when it reaches the 75 mark, where I've got the red 50 moving average just above it. So as it reaches 50, if it doesn't blast beyond there, there could be a chance that there would be a hold region between the 20 and the 50 as the trap zone between these two moving averages. But if it manages to blast above there, I've got these other three dotted lines that you can see, the blue, the white and the purple. The blue, the white and the purple are basically something I learned from Oliver Velez, which is he likes to cut his, his big trend into, three equal parts. So if you imagine the top of this downtrend as being one whole big pink candle. I mean, my red is in pink, so that just go with me on that. So basically, if you take this and then just draw this whole thing in as one big pink candle down, then if you cut it into thirds, you can see that if it manages to break above this bottom third, you're hitting the middle third. And then once you go beyond the top third, which is the top dotted blue line, then you've got a good chance of it going towards the 200 moving average. And by the time it reaches the 200 moving average, the way that it approaches it, if it approaches that with some violence, we could crack through and then, go back to all-time highs. But there could be a lot of testing at this point in time as well. So there's still a lot of ways to go yet for Bitcoin. But anyway, that's the overall gist of those dotted lines to tell me where we're at. And if I pull out to the monthly, I can show you on here, or even the 3 month, which is a lot clearer, because the less candles you have, it's clearer to see the trend. So normally they say that you can follow, when to invest into certain stocks and commodities and, certain things that you wish to hold as an investment by using, the bigger frame, bigger time frame. So here on the 3 month, you can see that if you were to buy in Bitcoin every time it hits the 20 moving average, 20 MA, you could have had a really good price to buy and then wait for it to, and then ride it as it goes up in the bullish trend. So back in July 2022, you could have bought Bitcoin at the price of 16 to 17, just below 20 grand. And if you bought it then, knowing this information, that as it hits the 20, it will tend to, either break or have its uptrend. So at this point, if you were to buy in there, you would have caught a lovely trend from 20 up to 120. That's the power of Bitcoin and how it moves. So that's, for something in the future to bear in mind. And the red line, like I said, is the 50 moving average. And I tend to use these like track lines, like guardrails. So anything in between the 20 and the 50 is a chance for you to buy at better prices and then just wait for the ride, upwards. So right now, like I said, on the 3 month, again, if you break up this huge green candle, if you draw this huge green candle as one big green candle and you cut it into thirds, you can see where the white line, the blue line and the purple line are my thirds. But that orange line there, that is the 50%. Normally, everything that falls to the 50%, if it doesn't go any lower, there's a good chance that it will bounce higher. So as you can see, I drew in my line in the sand at 62,000 and it looks as though it's 62,000. There could be a hold, but then the confluence, things that add together is also this 20 moving average is also approaching that 50% mark. So if this 20 holds it, then there's a good chance and likelihood that we are going to see, a resurgence and, a pullback to this, and then off we go again, just like we did here back in October 2022. However, if there is one more, 3 monthly candle that goes beyond this 20 blue moving average line here, and it goes a bit deeper towards trying to hit this 50 moving average, then it just shows you that, there's more weakness in BTC. And so Bitcoin is obviously trying to give you a better price. I wouldn't say it's a bear market, although people would call it that. I just normally take this as a view, like if you're an investor, you're just looking for the best price. So if it does fall below this 20-day moving average and it decides to hit this red line, which is the 50-day moving average, then we're getting into the territory of where I've got my pink line, which is my 1/3 at the bottom. Anything below this 1/3, I would say, yeah, we are heading into some kind of bear market and it could last a while, because after you've, entered a bear market, it would take some time before there's some build up, before, it shoots back up. So looking on the positive side of BTC, it could be that there just is, a quick kind of, hold at the 20 and then that's the pullback and then off we go again. Or like I said, the other thing to look out for is it could drop a little bit further in between the 20 and the 50 moving average, and that's the trap zone in between there, where there could be a little bit more of a hold, you know, for however many months, and then it will either go up or go a bit further down. So like I said, at the moment, that is looking on the outwardly, you know, the longer time frame, and on the monthly you can see that it's starting to kind of have a bounce already from that 50% mark, the line in the sand, which is 62k, where you can see there's already been an attempt of, you know, the pullback seems to be kind of ending, and there seems to be a period where it's kind of happy to bounce in between the 20 and the 50. So now you can play this to the upside, at least up to 90k before there's any other changes. So this could be a holding period between this 20 and this 50 on the monthly chart for some time. Or it could just, you know, just blast to the moon at any point, really. That's my assessment of Bitcoin. I would say it's a buy at the moment, but up to a certain price. And these are my, you know, the dotted lines show me where it can get up to before that you could see some, you know, movements within Bitcoin. Another one that I like to look at is also Nvidia, because Nvidia is also very, you know, it's one of the, well, it is the stock that is holding up basically the S&P 500. So if you look at Nvidia, if you're an investor, long-term investor of these, you know, big plays, these big stocks that, you know, like Nvidia is number one at the moment. If you're an investor of these, then obviously, like I said, if you look at the monthly chart, you'll know when to invest, because as soon as Nvidia gives you a pullback to any of these moving averages, whether it be the 20 or the 50 or the 200, that is the best time to pick up the best prices. So like I said, the last time it hit a really good price was back in April of last year, where it got down to as low as $88 a share. So that would have been a great pullback to then re-enter the stock or add more to your collection, and then ride it all the way up to 200, I think got up to 212 or something like this, before it had another pullback. And as you can see on my chart, I also have my famous three lines: the blue, the white, and the pink or purple. So the blue line is basically the 1/3. Like I said, if you look at this huge green on the monthly as one big huge green candle, then you break it into thirds, you'll see that if it stays above the top third, there's a good chance that it will keep going. So at the moment, it seems to be holding that. It seems to be holding the top third. And there could be more of a bounce before it pulls back, or it just could be holding in this region before it goes any higher and breaks beyond its all-time high of $212 a share. Obviously, if there's any kind of, you know, catastrophic event or black swan, there could be a pullback further to maybe the 50% mark, where this 20 period moving average is catching up. So if it goes to the 50, there's still a chance of it pulling back and still, you know, being in an uptrend. Like I said, at the moment, it seems as though Nvidia is still a buy. You're getting really tremendously good prices at about 180. And then hopefully it will go beyond the 212 and make a new all-time high after this. So at the moment, I would say Nvidia is also a good buy. And if you go to the daily chart, you can see that the 200 moving average, 200 period moving average, this yellow line, is also a good indicator of where the stock is bouncing from. There's a huge move on the daily on the 2nd of March that's caused, you know, this huge bullish candle to be produced. After, you know, bullish candle, it tends to continue, but obviously at the moment it is between, it's also in a trap zone between the 200 and the 20 moving average. So there could be some, you know, bouncing backwards and forwards between these two moving averages as it's moving along. So again, I would say Nvidia, as you're getting good prices, it's a good time, you know, for investment purposes to make a purchase. and obviously DCAing in. Like I said, it's not financial advice, it's just my assessment of these stocks and where I see them at, with, you know, knowledge that I've learned over time. So I'm watching Nvidia and I'm seeing there is a play between the 20 and the 200 at the moment. It could be at some point it will break beyond the 20 and, you know, get out of this actual trap zone and start to climb and make its way, you know, past its all-time high, and make a new all-time high. But obviously there's a few, you know, there's a few more barriers to go, such as this huge red candle that you can see here that was produced on February the 26th, like this huge candle here. If you think of this as being a brick wall, there's this huge brick wall for it to, you know, make its way across and, you know, and past. So as it reaches this, there's going to be a lot of, you know, fighting between bulls and bears at this particular juncture between 184 to 194. So between there and there could be, you know, quite a bit of a fight. But for now, it seems like a free journey for it to get up to at least 185, 186, I would say, before it pulls back and then makes a further move up. Or it could just be holding until it's, you know, has a catalyst to do that. Yep, so that's Nvidia, and another one is Palantir. Palantir is also a good play at the moment. Palantir has also been on a decline, and again, if you draw out these three lines that I have that cuts the candles into thirds, you have a good idea of where the stock would like to go. And as I say, at the moment on the daily, you can see that the stock is trying to, you know, it looks as though it's bottoming out because it's not going any lower than 126. I mean, it's tried it once, twice, three times, and it doesn't really seem to want to break this 126 level. So this must be a good price that a lot of, you know, bulls are like loving this price, and they're just like, you know, gulping it all up at this point. So it looks as though there is a turn, and you can see that the 20 moving average, the faster speed period moving average, is starting to curl up. And as it's curling up, you can see we've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days of green candles already. So it looks as though there is this bullish move that's coming in. However, it's coming in towards this purple line, which is my bottom third. So there could be some reaction here where it could pull back a bit before it reaches the so really it is moving upwards, but don't forget it's going into a trap zone of the 20 and the 50-day moving average, that red line there. So it could be bouncing in between these two lines, let alone the fact that there is a 200 looming overhead. So the 200-day looming overhead shows that it's still in bear territory. However, there is a pullback, a retracement at the moment. So how high it can go, well, I have estimates of the bottom third at 154 and also the 50 at 159 and the 200 at 161. So anywhere between here is a good buy. So Palantir at the moment is a buy up until these areas, and there'll be some pullback. And it could just be, you know, a nice pullback for the potential for it to keep ripping higher. Again, it looks as though it's trying to break its bear trend and move into the uptrend. Let's see how much the bulls have in their tank to do that. So far, those three, I say, are a buy currently in March. Things can change overnight. Like I said, at the moment, we're in kind of a situation where, you know, obviously you guys watch the news and you hear what's happening. So there's lots of turbulence at the moment. However, these stocks could be riding the turbulence. And Palantir is obviously one of those defensive stocks. So the more turbulent, you know, the world gets, maybe this is a stock that uses that as a catalyst to go higher and higher and higher. And lastly, let's take a look at SPY. So SPY, like I said, is the overall, it's, you know, the top 500 companies in the US, but it's mainly led by, you know, 7 of the top stocks, which, you know, are your Nvidia's, Palantir's, Tesla, Microsoft, Apple. All those are the ones that, you know, define how SPY moves. So looking at SPY, let's pull out and have a look at the wider picture on the monthly. So on the monthly, I have this big green candle. If you draw it from here all the way up to the top, you can see if you break this big green candle into half, the half sits at round about the 600 point, that orange line of mine. So if it doesn't get anywhere near there, then obviously there's not much you can say about SPY being really bearish, because on the monthly chart, you can see it's just a small pullback. So with SPY, it looks as though it's just pulling back ever so, nicely to the top 1/3. If I put this line in purple, you'll see what I mean. So that there. And if I just change this to white at the moment for now. So you can see that SPY is just giving you a nice pullback to the 1/3. And like I said, anything that pulls back to the 1/3 has a greater chance for it to, keep going higher and higher. So at this point, there is a potential for SPY to not really, it seems to be holding this 1/3 area. And as the 20 EMA is catching up to it, it may not go any further than this 1/3. So it could just hold in between here until it decides to break its, all-time high of around 700. So that's where SPY sits at the moment. And if I go to the daily, you can see that it's been in a holding pattern for some time. The holding pattern is literally between this purple line and this top red line here. So the holding pattern for SPY is at the moment, it's kind of holding this purple line, this top third. And obviously, it's still below the 20 moving average. And as it's still below that and between the 20 and the 200, it is kind of bearish. However, for intraday, I think there's a good opportunity for some bullish retracements, as you can see here. As it hit the bottom of this 1/3, it had a bullish retracement. And for today, there is a good retracement for it to go back to that, 20 EMA. And on the 4-hour, you can see that it could, if it was bullish enough, break past that 20 and hit the 200. So the 200 overhead could be, the cap on the 4-hour. That's looking at the bigger time frame. And again, if you look at this candle as one big red candle, if you break it in half, if it hits this white line here, this one here, then you can say that, yes, it's going to, maybe that could be the top, and it could hit that and then bounce back down. And obviously, as it retraces down, it could just have a small pullback before, it goes for a further surge to try and break through the 200. But that, like I said, it's made up of this, it's moved by the seven mag stocks, like I've mentioned, Nvidia, Tesla, Palantir, Apple, Microsoft, Google. These are the ones that moves it. So if all of those individual stocks collectively have a bullish sentiment, then there is a good chance that SPY will follow along. So at the moment, you can see that on all of them, there is a buy for today. Today being the beginning of March. So I would say there is a buy with a caveat that there are overhead overhead resistance zones. Let's put it that way. And when it has, more oomph to go past these resistance zones, these moving averages like the 200, then it will break into the new territory of going into the uptrend. But anyways, guys, those are my stock calls for today. They all seem to be buys, like I said, at the moment for today. Hopefully, towards the end of the week, we'll get a clearer view as to whether the uptrend has the potential to keep going, or, as I say, they're just hitting their resistance and then that's it. The retracement is over and then it'll go into a holding period. I hope you guys enjoyed that and found it useful. I'll keep doing these updates now and again. Hopefully I'll try to do them every day, but if I don't manage, then I'll do them, every few days in the week, so that you guys have, an idea if these stocks are, buy, sell or hold. Like I said, the ones that I've covered today are, I would go with a buy. But then you have to wait to see, because you really don't know until, the actual market open gives you the actual, prices, and then you'll know exactly if you're in a bullish trend or a bearish trend. But yeah, I hope my assessment today has helped you on your trading journey. And like I said, this is for, for fun, not really financial advice. So just take it all with a grain of salt. And then, if you want to learn more, follow my channel. Okay, over and out. Thanks, guys.